Descriptive adjectives in Hebrew are words that grammatically relate to a noun and describe it. In English, this concept is simple because adjectives are not affected by gender and number, and they're placed before nouns. In Hebrew, they must agree in gender and number with the noun they describe. Hebrew nouns can be masculine or feminine, so descriptive adjectives must match the gender and number of the noun, whether it's singular or plural. To identify the gender of a Hebrew noun, I've already made a video about this topic, along with showing common endings for masculine and feminine nouns in Hebrew. I would recommend watching it, but here's a short recap. Masculine singular beings typically have no common ending, so they simply need to be memorized. Feminine singular beings typically end in et or ha. Masculine plural beings typically end in im, and feminine plural beings end in ot. These are the common endings that are possible to find in Hebrew nouns. However, such endings are used for both nouns and adjectives, and we can have an adjective in every category to see how it's modified to fit the gender and number of a noun. A simple adjective can be gadol, gadol, which is masculine singular, and gadol means big. The feminine singular would end in ha, with a slightly different Niqqud. Gdola, gdola. The masculine plural would end in im. Gdolim, gdolim. The feminine plural would end in ot. Gdolot, gdolot. This is how adjectives are modified to fit the gender and number of Hebrew nouns. Let's have some examples to fully understand how adjectives work, and let's not forget that Hebrew adjectives are placed after the noun they describe. Sefer tov, sefer tov, good book. This phrase is masculine singular, and to make it plural, we add the ending im to both the noun and adjective, while slightly changing the Niqqud. Sfarim tovim, sfarim tovim, good books. Let's have a feminine example. Mishpacha yafa, mishpacha yafa, beautiful family. This phrase is feminine singular, and we can further tell it's feminine because of the ha ending in both the noun and adjective. To make it plural, add the ending ot to the noun and adjective while slightly changing the Niqqud. Mishpachot yafot, mishpachot yafot, beautiful families. Let's have another masculine example. Ben chacham, ben chacham, smart boy or smart son. To make it plural, add im to the noun and adjective while slightly changing the Niqqud. Banim chachamim, banim chachamim, smart boys or smart sons. Let's have another feminine example. Talmida tova, talmida tova, feminine good student. To make it plural, add ot to the noun and adjective while slightly changing the Niqqud. Talmidot tovot, talmidot tovot, feminine good students. This is how descriptive adjectives work in context, and we can even join multiple adjectives which will still agree with the noun, like saying Yalda ktana vechachama, Yalda ktana vechachama, small and smart girl. When plural, the phrase will be Yeladot ktanot vechachamot, Yeladot ktanot vechachamot, small and smart girls. Moreover, it's possible to make a definite form of adjectives in Hebrew by adding a definite prefix, which would act as an article. When a Hebrew noun is definite using ha, the adjective must also be definite with the prefix ha. An example can be hayeled hagavoa. Hayeled hagavoa. The tall, masculine boy. In English, a definite article is used separately only with the noun, but in Hebrew, the prefix is attached to both the noun and adjective. When plural, the phrase is hayeladim hagvoim. Hayeladim hagvoim. The tall, masculine boys. In this example, you might be thinking, why does Hebrew add a prefix to the adjective? Why can it not keep the prefix only with the noun? In this case, we're dealing with adjectives as attributes and predicates. When adjectives are attributive, they modify nouns directly, just like in English. Hayeled hagavoa, the tall boy. However, when an adjective is predicate in Hebrew, or when it doesn't have the prefix ha, it describes the subject with no to be verb in the tense. In other words, an adjective without the prefix ha acts like the verb to be in predicate sentences, except that in Hebrew, to be is not used in the present. So, if we say hayeled gavoa, hayeled gavoa without ha, this phrase would simply mean the boy, masculine, is tall. This is the difference between attributive and predicative adjectives, and this is what happens when we don't use the prefix ha with the adjective. Because this lesson focuses on descriptive adjectives, we do want to include the prefix with the noun and adjective, so watch out for this difference. While we're on this topic, it's also good to know that Hebrew adjectives can also be used as nouns, which is similar to English. Such expressions can be hagadol, hagadol, the big one or the great one. Harasha, harasha, the evil one or the wicked one. Hatovim ve haraim, hatovim ve haraim, the good and the bad, masculine and plural. This form is common in both biblical and modern Hebrew. So overall, this is how descriptive adjectives fully work in Hebrew.